Um, well, hello, Facebook Live. Um, I'm here today with Eve Rickert. We are going to be talking about More Than Two, the second edition. Before we begin, I want to acknowledge the bravery of the 𝘓𝘰𝘷𝘦 flotilla that is currently being intercepted and detained, prevented from giving humanitarian aid to the people of Gaza by an illegal siege. May their efforts on behalf of the Palestinian people bring international outrage and action. That's happening as we speak, so I wanted to name that and acknowledge that. Anyway, to move on to the actual topic of what we're discussing today, I'm Kitty Stryker. I use she, her pronouns, and I am the author of Love Rebels, How I Learned to Burn It Down Without Burning Out. I am here with Eve Rickert of Thorn Apple Press, who is the co-author of More Than Two, and my publisher. It's been 10 years since the first edition came out, and I wanted to host a discussion about how this book happened, what changes could be expected from the second edition, and what she's learned. 10 years is quite some time. So yeah, welcome, Eve.
Hello, thank you for having me. It's great to be here. I'm just sitting here clicking around because I'm trying to make sure that this thing is live in as many places as possible. So if you'll just bear with me for 1 second. It is telling me that to stream to Facebook, I need to put in a description. So I'm pasting it from the event. I also have a cold, so I'm coughing a lot. I will be sucking on cough drops as we talk.
Yes, we are both sick.
All right. Yeah, it's
solidarity.
I'm here now. What was the question? Sorry.
Hi, who are you? What are you doing? What's happening?
My name is Eve Rickert. I am joining this live stream from the traditional unceded territories of the 𝘓𝘰𝘸 and 𝘓𝘂 peoples, colonially known as Vancouver, BC. Not Vancouver. Hi, I'm in Victoria. Getting an error message. There we go. And I am the co-author of this book, More Than Two, second edition, Cultivating Non-Monogamous Relationships with Kindness and Integrity, co-authored with the fabulous Andrea Zanin, and with a foreword by 𝘏𝘠𝘯𝘵. So thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's start with differentiating what makes this version different from the first version.
Okay, quite a few things, actually. First of all, the authors are different. So as I mentioned, this one was co-authored with Andrea Zanin, who is a writer who lives in Toronto, who I've worked with for, I don't know, 8 or 9 years now. And so that's a big change. The content itself has been fully rewritten, like just top to bottom. And it ended up being a much deeper dive than we initially expected it to be. And it was one of those things where as we got into the content and it just sort of like iterated, we went deeper and deeper until we were like, cutting whole chapters and rewriting new chapters. And so, I mean, a good like 95% of the content has been changed or rewritten in some way. There is a lot that will still be familiar to people. I mean, the structure of the book and the basic topics covered remain the same. I have leaned far more into my relationship anarchist values, I think, than even, I was sort of nascently that when I co-authored the first edition. There are a couple of new chapters, a brand new chapter, which also happens to be the longest chapter in the book, which is about abuse. And it's really close to the front of the book. And we talked about where to put that. And at one point I suggested, like, should this be its own book? Like, should we do one of my little More Than Two Essentials books on non-monogamy and abuse? But we decided it really needed to be in the book, and it really needed to be upfront, because so much of the advice in the book, if you are in an abusive situation, it's just not going to serve you. So we wanted to address that. And then, like, the jealousy chapter, completely rewritten. The monopoly chapter, completely rewritten. The sex chapters, there used to be 2 chapters on sex, and now there's like one big chapter that's also been totally revised, rewritten. And so, like, what we would do when we would rewrite these chapters is we would actually, like, write the new chapter and then go back to the old chapter and say, okay, is there anything in here we want to save? And maybe grab some stuff out of that and kind of work it back in. So that's how, the blending kind of happened. The first edition had a lot of personal stories. And initially, my thinking was I wanted to remove the personal stories from my former co-author, and then was not sure what to do about mine, because I didn't want to put in new ones, but the situations and all of those stories had changed. And so I didn't know. I was kind of sitting on the fence about that. And then Andrea said, do we really need these? Like, with most of them, if you just take the story out, the text reads the same. Like, it doesn't actually do very much. The stories don't actually do very much. And so I thought about it, and I decided, I think maybe I will take all the stories out, because I guess part of it too was, like, I've come to cherish my privacy a lot more. And I think the first edition was written at a time when, I think there was much more of a trend towards, like, extreme self-disclosure in like 2013, 2014.
Absolutely.
And those of us who, like, lived through that, I think a lot of us are like, no, actually private is good sometimes. So I just felt like I didn't need to turn my life into material. And the lessons could stand on their own, I mentioned the co-author, the foreword. The resources section has been, again, totally replaced and greatly expanded, and covering a lot more topics. Same with the endnotes. And and then I think, like, really another major change is that it is very explicitly political. And, like, I love my 3-star Amazon review that calls it informative but leftist, because like, I think that's a great tagline. We both, we share, a lot of the same political values. And I think, we've both come to an appreciation of, like, how, well, I don't know, I've come to it, maybe Andrea always had it, but I had come to an appreciation of just, like, how important the way you see your role in the wider world is in how you interact in your interpersonal relationships. And also the way that things like colonialism and white supremacy and capitalism play into the ways that we interact with each other on these micro scales, and are just the fundamental beliefs that we have about what relationships are even for. So that's very present in the front matter, the 2 prefaces. Andrea and I each have our own preface, and the foreword, and then it's, like, threaded throughout. And we address the idea of mononormativity a lot, and why, and sort of the political aspects of monogamy as well. So those are, I would say, and somehow, even after taking out the personal stories, it managed to be longer than the first edition. So
well, you remember what happened when I was like, oh, I'll just redo Ask Yourself into like a small book for teens, and that completely became its own thing. I think that can happen when you're like, oh, I have ideas of how I want to express this that are more specific.
Well, and also, I mean, I hadn't read the book in 10 years at that point. So, essentially, since I wrote it, I wrote it, and then I went on tour with it twice and read certain sections of it over and over again. But I didn't really remember a lot of what was in the rest of the book. And so as I started to get into it, I knew some things that had changed and that I wanted to correct. But as I started to get into it, more and more stuff, I was just like, whoa, like this is really like, it's outdated. It's both outdated, like in terms of the world around me, and also really outdated in terms of how I think. So, I mean, a lot of stuff that I would now consider really ableist, like pretty much anytime mental health came up, I was like, oh my God, like we can't say that, Yeah. So, stuff that was really ableist, stuff that was really cis-normative, heteronormative, stuff like that. So, I mean, yeah, another thing that we did was like, the language has been almost entirely replaced with gender neutral language. And we've like, tried to really rewrite it without any assumptions about, bodies or genders or, anything like that. So, which is one reason we needed to rewrite the sex chapter.
Yeah. What was one of the more challenging aspects of going back and doing that process?
I mean, getting started. I would say.
Amen.
Like really, I had so much resistance to actually starting the revision because I really did not want to go back into this text. And the way that my relationship with Andrea got started, the co-author relationship, was I originally asked Andrea to be my editor. And they were going to do a first pass on the text to, remove my co-author's stories and anything that like really sounded like his voice, to flag sections that needed revision, to sort of like defang it a little bit for me, make it almost a little bit safer for me to go into it, and also know where I needed to focus. And they did that, but then like as they got deeper into it, and like there was a lot of back and forth between us, and there were places where they were saying like, well, I think some new text needs to be here, and we decided that it made sense for some of that to be in their voice. And so like at some point we crossed this line from they're no longer editing my work to they are making substantive creative contributions to this work. And it was funny because like we changed the authorship twice, because first it was Eve Rickert, and then it was Eve Rickert with Andrea Zanin. And then at some point along the way, it was like, no, it's Eve Rickert and Andrea Zanin. And so it was just, actually very much like what the process with my original co-author had been. It was just like, passing the manuscript back and forth, and just like, each of us sort of freely editing and revising and adding and deleting, and as trust developed. So that was really, really lovely. But yeah, you had asked me the hardest thing. So yeah, it was definitely getting started, and I needed help to get started, and got that help, fortunately. And then of course, letting it go and deciding when it was good enough and done. And because there was, because of the way this book was created, it's not necessarily the book that I would write now. Like if I were to sit down and write from scratch a brand new book about non-monogamy, it wouldn't turn into this. I mean, the same ideas and a lot of the language would be there, but I was working from an existing text. And so there was always more that I could change or add or research more, add another citation. And so really it was just, when it was done was defined by when the deadlines were. And because I was the publisher, it was really hard to determine when the real deadlines were. And I will say that, the copy editor and the designer and everybody else involved with this were extremely patient and collaborative in making this all work out.
Awesome. What made you decide to, because it's just in hardcover, right?
Well, it's in hardcover, and then there's an ebook and there's an audiobook. And the audiobook is narrated by me and Andrea. So is a question, why did
I was just curious, why is it just in hardcover?
We just wanted it to be really special.
Okay.
The first edition did have a limited edition hardcover. We printed about 250 hardcovers. I still have a box of like 30 of them and have no idea what to do with. They're signed as well. So if anyone wants a signed first edition hardcover, hit me up. But I don't want to make them available for sale anywhere, but yeah, we just wanted something that was really special and high quality. We are going to release a paperback eventually once the hardcover run sells out. So, and we're already talking about like the cover design for the paperback and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's a really pretty design. What was the process in picking the birds and flowers motif?
So here's the design for those who want to see. Let me grab, hang on. I'm going to grab the first edition off my shelf. See if I can find it.
Yeah, my apartment right now is covered in books from the Pacific Northwest Booksellers Association. I shipped myself a box of like 13 books, I think.
Yeah. So first of all, this cover artist, her name is 𝘓𝘰𝘸 𝘙𝘦𝘢𝘳𝑚, and she lives in Kiev, Ukraine, and she's a paper cut artist, and she's on Instagram, and I highly recommend that you check her Instagram out because she's just incredible. She is so talented. And so I found her work when I was looking for catalog covers for Thornapple. So our backlist catalog is this beautiful red paper cut heart, like anatomical heart. And so that's how I found her work. And then I decided that I wanted to commission her to do the original artwork for this book, which I have the original. She sent it to me. It's in my basement. I have to figure out how to frame it because it's like all 3D and like collage. Yeah. And the birds are like sculptures. And so this was the cover of the original, which was also a commissioned piece of art that we'd gotten. And I wanted to keep the same idea. So like the idea of like, someone with like, I mean, it's quite literal in this drawing. And so to me, this still sort of captured the same idea, but moving a bit away from the literalism. And so there's still like, in the first edition, it's funny. The first edition has this garden metaphor, and I think we actually eventually got rid of the garden metaphor in the second edition, but not after we'd already used it in the cover art. So,
I mean, it's really pretty and evocative. Yeah. I think it speaks to the sort of, I don't know, the expansiveness of like nature in a way that I feel is, it's just really vibrant.
Yeah. Yeah. So, trying to keep the same idea. I also wanted something that was a bit more quote unquote feminine looking than the previous cover, just because this was part of my process of kind of reclaiming my part of the book and the same thing that I did with the Thornapple brand, which like, our logo is like bright pink and because the thorn tree brand, which was the company that I used to co-own, was like, it was like this very, kind of serious brown logo. And I wanted to be not serious and not brown. So I went with hot pink and same with this cover. I wanted there to be pink and flowers and
Cool. What made you choose Andrea? I mean, you sort of spoke on it a little bit, but like, why were they the right person to be the co-author other than just having really good ideas?
Yeah. So I learned about Andrea through their essay, The Problem with Polynormativity, which came out in like 2011 or 2012, and was, created quite a firestorm at the time. And we followed each other on Twitter and eventually met in Toronto in 2015 and kind of stayed in touch, but they are a professional editor and translator. And so around 2017 or so, I started I started hiring them as an editor for various jobs, and it started as, you know, a thing here, a thing there. And then over time, she became Thorn-Apple Press's substantive editor, and she works on almost everything we publish. And I mean, I know she's worked on a couple of your books. They've worked on a couple of your books. And so, I mean, it was just, they were going to be the editor, right? Like, they have the skill and the editorial skill and the experience, and they have the also the knowledge. And as an editor, I mean, a good editor doesn't necessarily need to have subject matter expertise. Like, you know, there are other people I can hire as editors for our books who do fine on them, but their background and knowledge adds sort of an extra depth to what they can do, and to, like, you know, addressing certain issues, you know, sensitivity issues in our books, and accuracy and stuff like that. So yeah, I think for me, there was never any question that they were going to be involved in this book in an editorial capacity.
Yeah.
So
cool. So it sounds like there's been a lot of reworking of the material, like top to bottom, like, you know, the bare bones are really maybe what's left. What made you decide to keep the same name?
So part of it was just, like, what's the right word for this? Like, dependence on initial conditions, right? Like, I made the decision. I mean, it started with, I am going to do a new edition of More Than Two. So I acquired the rights to More Than Two in January of 2023. You know, I wanted, and I didn't know, you know, there are many, many things I would do differently if I knew everything then that I know now, right? So I didn't know what the trajectory of this book was going to take. I didn't know how thoroughly it would be revised, how much new content there would be. I didn't know I was going to have a new co-author. And so, you know, what I really wanted to do was I wanted to separate myself and my work from the work of my original co-author. And I felt like, well, my opinion at the time on the original work, and this is based on feedback that I had gotten from many, many people, was that it was fundamentally solid, and there was a lot of really good stuff in it, and it had been really transformative to a lot of people. But there were parts of it that, in the wrong context or if misapplied, could be really damaging. And so I wanted to address those things. So those were kind of my goals, was like, make it into the book that I wanted it to be. And separate myself, you know, have it be just my name on the cover was my original goal. And I wanted it to eventually supplant the old book in the marketplace. So, you know, I made the first edition out of print, and I figured, you know, it would probably take a couple of years, but over time, the new edition is what would come up on searches, and that's what people would see. And so I wasn't so much about, like, making it like a new commercially successful book that was as, you know, that made as big of an impact as the first edition did, but was more about sort of almost like closing a chapter on my life, you know? And to me, that felt like the way to close that chapter on my life. But yeah, I mean, I didn't know, like I said, I might have taken a very different approach than I took, but by the time we knew what this book was going to be, you know, the way publishing works, like, the data was out, the cover was out and made, it was being announced and sold, and this is the book it was. So yeah. A friend of mine gave me the idea that I should be calling it More Than Two Eve's version.
Oh yeah, like
I
Taylor's
love.
version. Yeah.
So I've rebranded most of the social media accounts as More Than Two Eve's version, but I don't know. I don't think I could really put it in the title because that doesn't feel quite fair to Andrea. I mean, it's still Eve's version, even though it's Andrea's the co-author. But
yeah. Is there? Because there was a website too, right? Is there still a relationship between the book and the website?
No, there is
Okay.
zero relationship between the book and well, okay. There are two websites called More Than Two.
There should be three.
One of them, what's that?
There should be three, then there's more than two.
That's right. Well, there's only, yeah, right. Well, actually, so I own several domains with that name, but they all redirect to morethan2.ca. So I also own morethan2.love, which I feel like maybe that's the one that I should use, but because it's like perfect, but morethan2.ca is my website. And currently right now, it's just sort of a landing page for the new book and for the other books that I have published in the what I call the More Than Two Essential series, which are these little snack-sized booklets on focus topics in non-monogamy. They're all like
so
Canadian
cute.
authors. Yeah. So let me see if I have one that
they're like this big, they're purse sized or pocket sized, and they're on all different topics like non-monogamy and death. And they're really fun.
This is the latest one that just came out by Marla Schreiber, Non-Monogamy and Defying a Paradigm. And then this one is by Carrie Jenkins, Non-Monogamy and Happiness. So there's a bunch, there's like 8 of these now. So all of these are listed on morethan2.ca. My plan for that site is because I really want to make it all about like Canadian non-monogamy content. So I want to turn that into like a resource and education site by Canadian authors and Canadian contributors. I actually did commission a bunch of content that I have. And now like the bottleneck is me finding the capacity to like give the instructions to the web designer for like, you know, finalizing the site with the contents, but it's like so close. Artwork. So that site is mine. And then .com is the American site, which only ever had like a loose connection to the book. So there's no content shared between the website and even the first edition. The first edition was brand new content that was, you know, originally and collaboratively written for the book. So we used the brand, that site was very popular. And so we used the branding on the book. And that's what they share is a name. So at this point, like they share a name, but they share no content. They share no authors because the first edition is out of print and I bought the rights to it. There aren't even links to the book from that site anymore. So one of the things that drives me crazy was when people say like, oh, you should read the book More Than Two. And then they put the link to that site. And I'm like, you can't find that book on that site. None of the content, it's completely different content. And I also think that site has been significantly revised since the book was taken out of print. So, you know, who knows? But if you are interested in the book or any of the books, morethan2.ca is the place you want to go.
Okay, awesome. I guess like what are some other things that like, were there any like fun stories or experiences while you were working on this? Or I mean, I gotta say for me, like writing is initially a slog that I am like squirming about. And then eventually I get into a rhythm and then I'm like, ooh, wow, I'm really juiced up about this or that or the other thing. But yeah, like, was there any particular moments that you were like, oh, that's it. That's what I want to say. Or like, that's how I handle this.
It's a good question. I mean, I don't know. I mean, my memory of the writing process, it was all pretty sloggy to me, honestly. I do remember like going back and reading bits and thinking like, oh, this is really good, you know? But I also have like, and I've always had a weird relationship with my creative work where once it's done and out in the world, it becomes like almost physically painful for me to look at it again. Like even the first book tour, the book tours for the first edition, like reading my passages over and over again was very difficult because it meant I had to like re-encounter my own work repeatedly. So yeah, I mean, there are times when I feel like I actually should like go and read some passages in this book, and because I need advice. Like, how did I suggest
Yeah.
that?
I feel like I've been saying that a lot about Love Rebels. It's like it's a lesson that I'm learning all the time.
Yeah, for sure. I think that just I was really happy with the way it all came together at the end. And I think also I've realized that like I really do work best in collaboration. And you know, that's why I used to be a freelance editor, and that's why I started a publishing company, because then I got to work with, you know, a whole team of people who are all doing different things, and we can create something that's more than the sum of its parts. And it's funny because I sometimes see people saying online like, well, you know, why doesn't Eve just write her own book? Why does she always, you know, why can't she do anything by herself? And I'm like, well, why would I want to do anything by myself? Like,
yeah,
that's a very
looking forward to us writing a book together. We'll have to figure out what it's going to be about, but
yeah, I mean, it's just a very individualistic way of looking at things, right? That like the things have more value if they're done alone. And I just don't, it's a weird thing to say. So, but I'm trying to embrace that, like, you know, I work best in collaboration.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I find with my own writing, I do probably work more efficiently on my own, but I feel like I ask so many people, like I crowdsource so much information when I'm writing, because I want, even if it's my voice ultimately, it's like I want it to be informed by a lot of different people. Like I don't want to portray mine as like the expert, you know? It should be a conversation. But I mean that's also the hard part, I think, with books, is they're published and they're a tangible thing. It's not like a blog that you can kind of keep redoing. Like there it is. I mean, I definitely think a lot about how I would change building consent culture, my first anthology, which I had never edited before. I did a terrible job editing. I'm really proud of like what I was trying to accomplish, but like now I feel like I've had so much more experience with writing that I would do it similarly but differently. Yeah.
I will say, so the one part that I wrote alone was my preface and acknowledgments. And that was so hard to write because I had a real specific idea of what I wanted to say and what I wanted to do with it. But just I was very ambitious with it, and getting the words out the way I wanted them to was just, I swear I was writing like a paragraph an hour. Like it was just so slow. It took me probably a week to write that. And, but I'm really happy with the way it came out. Like, I think it really did what I wanted it to do. So, yeah. And it's funny because the Amazon reviews that don't like how political the book is say that you should skip the prefaces because they're too political and they're not about non-monogamy. So there you go.
Well, they'd hate my stuff. But I guess I've always been very vocally and angry and political. So That's all. That's my brand. So do you have any like advice for people who are interested in writing, like just about the writing process?
I would say, advice for people who are interested in writing. Like in writing or in published, like actually writing a book?
Let's say writing a book.
Okay.
Let's narrow it down to that. I mean, it's still a huge topic, but
yeah, I mean, I would say it's really important to get feedback on your writing, and especially before you submit it to a publisher. Shop it around and get feedback. For a lot of people writing nonfiction, so that's a lot of people in the non-monogamy space, we as publishers get some really fantastic pitches in terms of ideas, like, oh wow, we would really love to publish something on this topic, but then it kind of falls apart when we see the writing, and then we're like, oh, like, well, you obviously understand this material very well, but you really need to work on your writing. So like seeing writing as a craft and as a skill that you need to develop. Don't hesitate to like take courses in it. Find, form a writing group with people you can share chapters with and get feedback on. Read a lot so you can like, learn how good sentences are put together and that sort of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I think one of the bits of advice that I would recommend for other people that I still haven't learned, keep in mind that you might have to do an audiobook of your book. And if you love run-on sentences, like I love run-on sentences, you won't have time to breathe. Yeah, that's definitely something I'm still working on. I like to add so many things to a sentence. I think it's too much academia, like, where you end up having these compound things.
Yeah, I recently did a job for a client where part of my job was to lower the grade level to grade 7. And that's such a big part of it, is chopping up long sentences into shorter sentences. Put in a period and you drop 3 grade levels.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, how can people help spread the word about this new version?
That is also a great question. So first of all, buy it. Go to 𝑚orethan2.ca and click on the link there to the book, and that's all the best ways to buy it. Of course, reviewing it. We really, really need more Amazon reviews. The first edition has 1,600 reviews and the second edition only has 22. So, we need a lot more reviews before it's going to start to creep up in the algorithm against the first edition. Same with Goodreads. Goodreads, unfortunately, merged the 2 editions. So when you review it on Goodreads, make sure you say in your first sentence, this is of the second edition, and also make sure that you're leaving it on the second edition, because you actually can specifically leave it on certain editions. But I would say, like, for sure, Amazon, we need lots more reviews. Again, feeding the algorithm, we're just trying to get our search rankings for this book up. So publicly sharing the book, putting in, if you have a website or a blog, like a permalink to the book. So that can either be to 𝑚orethan2.ca or to the Thornapple Press book page. That is, if you go to 𝑚orethan2.ca and you click on the book, you'll go to the Thornapple Press book page. So you can use that link. Or, if you want to use your own affiliate links for bookshop.org or Libro.fm or, heaven forbid, Amazon, you can use those links. They'll still feed the algorithm. But anything public, the search engines rank social media activity really high. Starting conversations about the book in like Facebook groups, Discord servers, on Reddit or wherever you convene with people, or starting a book club. Great way to get the word out. Putting in a request at your library is also really helpful, because it will help expose a lot more people to the book. And if you have a platform, you can interview me or Andrea or both. So those are some good ways. And also, I am trying to get to 1,000 followers on Instagram so that I can do IG lives again, because they recently instituted that rule. So if you want to go follow me on Instagram, I'm just Eve Rickert over there. That would be super helpful.
Okay, cool. I will make sure to add links to like the review section and stuff, and your Instagram to make that easier for people, because it could be hard to navigate all these different social media platforms anymore.
I know, for sure.
Where can people find you on Instagram? Are you on Blue Sky? Are you on any other platforms?
I am on Blue Sky. I'm not that active there right now. I'm not really super active anywhere, but I am everywhere. Like, I'm on Blue Sky, TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and I'm just Eve Rickert, all those places. And I do, excuse me, I do occasionally post on all of them. So, yeah.
Cool. Well, anything else that we didn't talk about that you want to bring up?
Not that I can think of right now.
Okay. Well, sweet.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So Eve Rickert, you can find her in all of those various places. And I'm Kitty Stryker. You can find me all over the internet under that name. And look out for my newest book, Love Rebels, How I Learned to Burn It Down Without Burning Out, which will be out October 17th.
I can wave that one around.
What?
I can wave that one around too. This is Kitty's
you know what? I have a box of them, but they're out of reach, and there's a cat sleeping on them right now. So if you buy a copy directly from me, it'll come with free cat hair. Congratulations. All right. Well, thank you so much. Thank you for coming and viewing, everybody, on Facebook Live, whether you're watching it live or watching it later. We really appreciate it. And check out the links on the event page. Thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone.